welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton, a retirement income specialist of Axim Planning and Wealth. I'm Spike Spangle. Tim, what's on your mind this week, my friend?
Want to talk about history lessons.
Oh, boy.
I mean, think about this. There's so much that we can learn from history, so many times that history just repeats itself. And what can we take away from that? What can we learn from that? What mistakes can we avoid in the future if we just pay attention to what's happened?
Brilliant. I love it. On today's program, we're going to talk about financial history lessons and what we all need to learn from them. Now, I looked it up specifically. There's that quote, "Those who cannot remember their history are condemned to repeat it." I think there's been lots of different
I have a Mark
versions.
Twain one also, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Nice. But I mean, we can look at events from things that have happened most recently as 2008, 2020. We can go back to 2000 and the dot-com bubble, and
Right.
do we see similarities? But you know what? We can go all the way back to 1929. And I think at least one thing that it feels like the financial markets industry themselves, they do try to learn from their mistakes.
They do.
From 1929, it was the individual stocks. Now, there weren't a lot of casual investors who had access to it, but how much was lost during that time? This was actually kind of what started the Investment Company Act of 1940. Say, hey, what about a group of assets so people aren't just gambling on one specific thing? We've got to learn from these lessons.
We do. And, if you look at the way the markets operate, we know that there's going to be bad times. We know that there's going to be bad markets. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and when matters. We're going to talk a little bit about sequence of return risk and some of these other things that when those markets happen to you, it matters when they happen. I think back to 2008 and, clients that weren't retired, obviously they weren't happy about that market volatility, but they weren't at a place where they were dependent on those assets for income. Mm-hmm. Totally different thought process, totally different emotion than somebody who retired in 2008.
Right. That's one of those things, and we're going to talk about some old math, but the kinds of numbers that people are usually associating with what you can draw down from your investments, but there's a lot that is left out from that, such as what kind of investments are in there. They assume all these kinds of rates of return. So what is one version of the old math when it comes to drawing down that you're talking about?
Well, in 1994, Bill Bengen had a study that he spent a lot of time on. It's a very famous study, and it's the 4% rule. You've probably heard of it. It basically is saying that you can take a 4% withdrawal rate from your retirement over time, increase it by 3%. He was looking at a 60-40 portfolio, so 60% stocks, 40% bonds, and all would be okay. That was the math. The problem is that he looked at a period in history, he went back and to the highest bond returns we've ever had in history. That was part of the math that added up to that 4% rule working.
Right. And there was another thing that has come out, I think it was about a year or so ago, and it was him who actually had it published in a newspaper because a lot of folks were still asking about it.
Right.
I don't know if my 4% rule is working. He says the 4% rule works unless we're in X kind of times. Do you know what that kind of X was? The X factor was inflation.
Inflation.
Yeah. So what happened over the last 2 years? High inflationary times.
And he actually suggested the increase of that 4% rule to help compete with inflation. But now I'm putting more stress on my assets. And what happens if I have heavy inflation and bad markets on top of that?
Right. Now we know, and we've discussed before, that typically, if you look at all the different research that's out there, and one of them, in fact, is called Ibbotson Associates, they typically say that over a 100-year period, the stock market averages somewhere around a 9-point something, close to a 10% return a year.
Right.
Now, that's over a 100-year period.
Right.
But you found some periods as well where there was no movement, or limited.
Right, and this is where that sequence and return risk comes in. This is where that 60-40, 4% withdrawal rule falls apart. I'll just give you a couple of examples. 21-year down market from 1900 to 1921. 16-year down market, 29 to 45, 17-year down market, 64 to 81, and 11-year down market from 2000 to 2011. I mean, these are 21, 16, 17, 11-year periods of time. If that happens to you in 21 years of down market during your retirement, it's catastrophic.
Yeah, and that's, I believe, where that sequence of returns that you were starting to talk to comes in.
Yes.
And do we need to portion out some of our money to make sure we've got reliable income? We don't like to say guarantee, but reliable income that you can't run out of, hopefully that has some inflation protection built in as well.
And this is the counter argument to the 4% withdrawal in the 60-40. We call it giving jobs to your money. And quite simply put, we're basically taking the money that has to produce income. We're classifying that as, I can't lose it, it can't have volatility associated with it, and I have to know what's going to happen, i.e., income. So we'll just take an example, Spike. Let's say that we have $1 million IRA and we need $40,000 of income. The 60-40, 4% withdrawal rule would solve that problem, right? But what if one of these periods happens where we go sideways? The answer is this. What if we took $500,000 of that $1 million IRA and we got our $40,000 of income from that? That liberates the other $500,000 for growth. Now its job is growth, to compete with inflation, to compete with taxes, to give us a rising income over time. And there is no issue if one of these periods happens on that $500,000, my $40,000 of income is going to keep coming in.
That's actually one of the simplest ways I've heard it explained before. Cut it in half. Let's make sure that this is over here in a vehicle that will produce consistent income no matter what the markets are doing.
Right.
Then this can be the later money, or even side by side, but smaller portions. We don't want it all in one place. Goes back to one of your most famous phrases, give what to your money?
Jobs.
Jobs to your money.
Well, think about it. It takes us away from 60-40, 4% withdrawal rule and doing this and hoping it works out. It gives us a known outcome. We know what's going to happen. We know that a bad market or a bad economy isn't going to impact it. The only thing that we have at risk then is the money we've already identified as extra.
Right. So to help our viewers out right now, we want to figure out, are you using old math or are you using new math on your portfolio projections? We can do that with you with a no-cost review and getting started on your own retirement blueprint. You call the phone number down here on the bottom of the screen. You can also use that QR code literally down here. Open up your phone to the camera function and point it right now at your TV at the QR code. Click on it. It'll take you over to the website. You can schedule your own no-cost appointment right there as one of the viewers of the Retirement Blueprint Show. More with Tim Lofton right after this.
Are you concerned that high inflation, rising interest rates, and stock market volatility may derail your retirement plan? If you're unsure how to manage your retirement withdrawals from your 401k or IRA to be sure you don't run out of money, at Axum Planning and Wealth, we'll help evaluate your retirement readiness. Contact us today for your own complimentary analysis and your very own retirement blueprint. As Americans, we strive for better. From a better house to a better career to a better life for our kids. Better has become the American way. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a better plan. To claim your retirement readiness review, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back. You are with Tim Lofton, a retirement income specialist of Axum Planning and Wealth, and this is the Retirement Blueprint Show. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Today we're talking about some financial lessons that we want to make sure that we all learn from.
Right.
We're talking about using some of the old math. Let's move on from that. Some regrets sometimes that you hear. In fact, there was a new survey done from 70 to 80-year-olds. Regrets that they had in either their financial planning for retirement or not really doing it at all. What were some of them that you saw specifically?
Well, one of the regrets that, and I found this interesting, they wish they had retired earlier. And I understand, I think, where they're going, where the respondents were going with that they didn't get to enjoy retirement and they feel like they worked too long. But I'd like to reframe that. I don't think this is a common thing that we see in the office where people they're waiting for someday. We're going to do this trip. When we retire, we're going to do this. We're going to spend more time with the grandkids. You don't have to retire to do that. Let's start living life. And a lot of times we think about retirement as this destination. We cross the finish line, and now all of a sudden it opens up our world and we can do all this stuff. We don't have to wait. Take those trips now. I had a client. This client was like literally the best client I've ever had. They were so kind, good people, did all the right things, saved. He put his 30 years in with the gas company, retired. His wife ended up getting an illness. She actually lost her leg, and all they wanted to do was travel the country and enjoy, and they didn't get to do that, and they could have enjoyed along the way. I'm not suggesting that you stop saving and just go on vacation all the time, but think about retirement as a gradual shift. Spend the time with the family. Spend some money. That's what you've saved it for. Don't wait until the end. And I think that'll take away that feeling potentially of I should have retired earlier, if you're enjoying it along the way.
I think there's a lot of viewers out there who can understand, empathize with that and say, yeah, I get it. But I think for a lot of folks, we're all wondering if we go back to some of the regrets and things we've talked about on different shows, really high inflation, longevity. So folks are working at least as long as their parents or grandparents did. It's great to know that there are those out there who have saved enough and are able to do that, but I think it's the unknown. And that's in part what the blueprint process is about. It's taken away the question mark.
It's taken away the fear. The thing that keeps people a lot of times from doing exactly what I described, of maybe spending a little bit of money, going on that cruise, taking that trip, is they are afraid that they're behind. The best way to find out if you're behind, ahead of the curve, right where you're supposed to be, is to have a plan. We designed the retirement blueprint for exactly that outcome, so that it removes the fear of the unknown. It tells you exactly where you are, and it allows you to see what you could be doing right now that's maybe different than you have been doing.
Well, another one of the regrets I'm just going to list off real quick, because it was, I wish I had started sooner. We hear that all of the time. You get that at live events. We get that from folks. Man, I wish I had started sooner. I want to ask you this, point blank, putting you on the hot seat.
All right.
Have you ever had anybody say to you, I wish I started later?
I have not, Spike. It seems those people are still worried, even though that they have more than enough money. We all feel behind, and the reason is the psychology behind it is it's generational, right? It's like I get married, I have kids, I've got to try and navigate that. I'm buying my first house, I'm raising the kids, and I got to send them to college, and we have all these things that we put in front of retirement planning. It's very natural. You're in great company if that's you. But here's the thing. Today, you are where you are. Now, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix it? Let's take just a snapshot of where things are right now. Let's look at where you're trying to get to. Let's build a plan. Let's get in this together and figure it out.
Right. Down on the bottom of the screen, you see the complimentary retirement blueprint. That's something that you can do. You can call the phone number. We like to call the show interactive. Call it right now. There are folks standing by. They'll schedule that appointment for you interactively. I know you're sitting there scrolling on your phones. I know it's there. That's okay. Pick it up, though, right now. Open it up to the camera function and point it at this QR code. It'll take you over to the landing page, and you can schedule an appointment right there. I was going to give Tim a moment here to find out what the next regret on the list is, because we don't want you to have those regrets. What is the next thing up on the list, though, for folks who are making sure that we don't have the same regrets in retirement?
One of the big ones is that people wish they had taken better care of themselves, their health. And we've talked about this over the years, that health without wealth doesn't do you any good, and wealth without health doesn't do you any good. You have to have both. And we have a real heart for the health part. We spend a lot of time in our office talking to people about things like their diet and exercise and how to take care of themselves, because it doesn't do you any good to have worked all these years, saved all this money, sacrificed to do it, and then not be able to enjoy it.
Right. Now, I'm going to take my good friend Tim here, not necessarily throw him under the bus, but I'm going to use something. We had dinner last night. It was wonderful doing some of our pre-show notes. But you yourself, you grew up as a swimmer, and you got
Yes.
swimmers in the family as well.
Yes.
Did you make it out towards all of the buoys on your last 2-mile swim, Tim?
I did not. So my son is a swimmer, and so we decided that we would go out and do some open water swimming out at the local lake. And it'd been a minute since I had done that. I thought, well, I'm going to be okay. I mean, I'm a former triathlete, college swimmer. I'll be all right, even though it's been probably 15 years since I've done that. I was wrong. So we swim out and heading down the buoys, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I cannot breathe. It did get better though, Spike. I did make it. It wasn't pretty, but I did make it. Thank you for sharing
You're
with
very
all
welcome.
of Ohio my swimming
That's all
failures.
right. I'm sure. Well, if you go back to our show from last week, the 100th episode, you were feeling bad, but man, look at some of the hairstyles I had in that special package that everybody
it's
put
funny
together.
at live events. Matt introduces me, and he's like, former triathlete, former this, Ironmans, all that, and then he's like, but the guy can barely walk into the office, and I'm like, where's the love, man? I mean, where's the love with my work family
It's
here?
just how much we get along as family members. We love doing the program here, but it's somewhat the same thing when it comes to the investments and so forth. We get a lot of folks who will come into your office. They're still invested like they're a 20-year-old, invested like they're 30, invested like they're 40.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So part of the analysis on the blueprint is actually taking a look to see, are you still trying to swim your investments like you're 20 years old?
Well, and that doesn't work. And, that is a common mistake that we see where, what got us to the point of retirement is not what's going to get us through retirement. It's a different set of rules. It's a different set of needs. Mm-hmm. And it's important that, as we go through that process, that we make that pivot, that shift of going from the accumulation years to the distribution years.
Right. Talking about the regrets, just to wrap up this segment here, because I know we need to talk a little bit. You put together a message on Social Security that's going to come up here in a moment, but we want to make sure that those goals are aligned with what you want to do. But there's two parts to the regrets. People wishing they had spent more in the beginning, but then probably a lot of folks out there who don't know that they're spending too much. So we're always cautioning. There's two sides of the coin.
Of course.
But the biggest point is if you don't know, then you don't know what you can spend. So do yourself a favor, call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. Let's get you started on your own retirement blueprint. It's no cost for the viewers of the show. You can do that right now, or you can use that QR code. How do we get even more efficient and how to make sure we don't have any regrets in retirement? Tim has put together this special package on Social Security. He and I will be right back after this.
Social Security is easy, right? The question is, should I take it now or later? Well, there are dozens of ways that you can take Social Security if you're single, and hundreds if you're married. You've paid into the system for decades. Don't you want to make sure that you optimize your retirement income? Depending on how you've set up your other retirement accounts, your Social Security could either be tax-free or up to 85% taxable. It's not as simple as it might seem. So give us a call today. Let us uncomplicate Social Security for your retirement. Give us a call at 855-684-3485, or you can scan the QR code below to schedule your complimentary review.
Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Ben. Hey, birthday party for Carolyn 5. Happy birthday to you.
Good morning, Ben. Happy Monday.
Daryl's birthday, be there or be square. Happy birthday to you. As you can see from our quarterly report on slide number 62, we're trending in the right direction. All signs point to a very positive outlook for the next several years. If you peel back the onion
Ben, do you have anything to add?
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. Today we're talking about financial lessons, hopefully that you can learn from. They polled 70 to 80-year-olds, asking them what were maybe some of their regrets in either financial planning for retirement or not having done it. Let's do a quick recap for some of the viewers out there.
Well, I think, one of the big ones is health.
Yeah.
Taking care of themselves. We definitely want to make sure that we address the retire on time, retire early, retire late. One of the biggest things that we've seen over the last, probably 10 years is how many more people are working longer. And a lot of times we feel like that's this negative connotation of, oh my gosh, like I'm working past 60, I'm working past 65, I'm working all the way to 70. But that's not the attitude today. They're working less, they're just working longer. It's allowing them to do some of the things that they wanted to do in retirement, having the cash flow, not having the impact on their investments by taking the money out, and they're growing their Social Security to a bigger number.
Right.
But, one of the other biggies is hobbies. Having hobbies. When you retire, there's got to be a plan. It can't just be, and this is what's keeping people working longer in the first place is, how do I replace the things that I get from working? Human interaction, being a part of a team, working towards a common goal. That all of those things add to longevity. They're things that we get from working. So as we look at our hobbies and how we're going to replace our time, this is an important decision that we've got to have an answer to.
You've always said that each retirement blueprint is, of course, tailored, personalized to each family and situation. What is usually the beginning of the conversation like for you? Is it more about dollars, cents, investing? What is your investment style? What can you typically talk about in returns? We get to taxes, or
it's lifestyle.
Do you start with lifestyle?
It's got to be. You have to look at lifestyle because lifestyle defines what that is. We'll have somebody in the office and they'll say, my wife and I want to travel a lot. When we retire, we want to travel a lot. Now, a lot of advisors might just write down, well, they want to travel. What does that mean to you? And that's exactly what we ask them. Well, travel where? Are you going to national parks in the U.S.? Are you going to Europe? Are you flying business class? Are you flying not at all? We have clients that, one of the spouses doesn't like airplanes, that won't fly. And so that limits what they can do. But defining that lifestyle, do you want your kids involved, your grandkids involved? How are we going to incorporate all of that into painting a picture that we can then come alongside with a plan and deliver on?
And when you're talking about that sense of worth, it doesn't just have to be travel to be talking about lifestyle.
Right.
You can give to the community. You could volunteer your time. You could help out with the school districts or at your church, your faith, your community,
right.
Whatever you want to do. There's so many different ways, giving of your knowledge to feel, again, like you said, part of that team that's still accomplishing goals. Don't people live? There's been different kinds of studies who have shown, but they can't say it empirically. But it seems like people tend to live a little bit longer when they've got a purpose to what they're doing.
100%. And they have done longevity studies that are absolutely inclusive of that. Volunteering is absolutely one of the easiest ways to replace a lot of the things that you get from working, and to have that same purpose, that reason to get up in the morning. Another one is, we talk a lot within lifestyle and retirement of legacy. A lot of times when we say the word legacy, the client thinks, how I'm going to give money away. I'm going to give money to my kids or maybe give money to a charity. That's not the legacy I'm talking about. Legacy, when you think about it, your kids or grandkids aren't looking for money. They want memories. Memories are what make the difference. So we've helped families over the years design or set up different types of family events. Family vacation is obviously a big one. You know, when you pay, your kids and grandkids will come, right? I mean, if you rent a big house on the beach in North Carolina and invite all the kids down and they don't have to pay for anything, they will show up. And what happens is you do that year, I'm not talking about just a one-time thing, but you do that year after year, it becomes what our family does. When you're gone, your kids will still do it with your grandkids. Then your grandkids will do it with their kids. It becomes
setting up a lifestyle legacy. That's amazing. And the financial history lessons, though, to learn from as we started out the program is how many times have you heard about celebrities or somebody passing away, not having a will or a trust or I mean, we've got to learn from these lessons. If it's publicly splashed out there, what a mess it can be for a family that has assets without any sort of plan. This is something you can do, and it doesn't have to be very complicated, does it?
An estate plan is a gift that you give to your family to make things not complicated when you're gone. It defines what you want to do. It gives what you want to who you want, when you want, the way you want, with the least amount of fees possible.
I always love that, so I'm going to make Tim do that one again. What is it, Tim?
It gives what you want to who you want, when you want, the way you want, with the least amount of fees possible. It's my definition of estate planning. It takes care of the ones you love, both when you're here and after you've passed away. It is a gift you give to your kids, to your spouse. When you pass away without an estate plan, you just made estate planning your spouse's problem. You made it your kid's problem. And it's so easily avoidable. One of the things that we do in our office is estate planning. We have an estate planning attorney who specializes in that very thing.
Right. So coming and sitting down with folks, you could say, hey, by the way, can I just wander down the hall and go have that conversation over here? Where's a good time, age-wise, you think, to start even thinking about that?
Well, I think at every age you need an estate plan. I mean, if you have stuff and kids and a spouse, you should have things in writing. It just gets more complicated the older you get because you have more stuff. And we want to make sure that things are in writing the way they're supposed to be. Things like those advanced directives, power of attorney for the health care, power of attorney for financial, living will, regular will, potentially a trust.
All right. Thank you very much, Tim. Today we did some financial lessons. Hopefully we learned a little bit about it, but you'll learn even more in person. You can call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We'll get you started on your own free retirement blueprint. The blueprint, it's not a printable, it's not a piece of paper or even a book. It's your own personalized process to retirement planning. It'll cover all of these other areas that we've talked about on today's program and even more, whatever's on your mind. Call the phone number. Thanks for watching. Tim will be back next week.